Okay. So I think we almost said just 1 second. Yeah. So all right. Akmal, can you please go to the next slide? Awesome. Thank you. So, you're welcome to join us next time. We are have organizing amazing topics that are going to be presented in the next few weeks. On December 10th, we have AI-powered personalized shopping and recommendation engine. All these QR codes, they will take you directly to the landing pages. So, yeah, actually, okay. So we have a comment from Michael regarding our session from yesterday. So yeah, we had some unexpected delays. So we decided that the team should collectively cancel the session, but no worries. We are going to email you a YouTube recording. I believe it should reach to you within 6 to 7 hours. So if anyone was willing to attend that one and could not, we're very our apologies. So yeah, moving on 12th December, we are hosting Build Vector Embeddings for video via Python Notebook and OpenAI. And on this December 16th, we have full text search JLucine version. And I think this webinar will also be hosted by Akmal. So stay tuned for it. And thank you so much for joining. Moving on, we also have put together a link for you to try SingleStore today and follow along in real time. So if you want to make the best use of this webinar, like, and obviously of your time as well, so try out SingleStore, and Akmal will give you an amazing walkthrough and tell you everything about the features. We actually have a few more features, and we actually, it's completely free. We have a new free shared tier which you can try out, and Akmal is going to talk about it in a while. So yeah, that's it from my side. And if there's anything else that you would want me to answer, please use the Q&A button and I will, take care of your query. All right, take it away, Akmal. Thank you so much, everyone.
Great. Thanks very much, Yukti, and thank you all very much for joining. I know we're at the that time of year where things get kind of seasonal. It's early December, and certainly in the Western world, it'll be vacation time for many of you, I guess, in the very near future. So one point I just quickly wanted to make. Let me just see if it will let me go back or not. Uh, my screen is rather full. Let's just do this. No, it won't. There we go. That's what I wanted to do. Okay, sorry for that. So I was just going to add that today we're going to use LangChain and we're going to use Clip from OpenAI and just give you a kind of a bit of a taster in terms of how to deal with text and image data and how we could store that in SingleStore. But over the next couple of weeks, as you can see, as Yuki pointed out, so we've got this one coming up on the 10th, where we're going to take things a step further. We're actually going to be looking at some sort of, images, if you like. And I haven't quite decided what I'm going to use there, but we'll build a recommendation engine and use Clip there as well. And then this one on the 12th, where we're actually going to be looking at video and then seeing how we could use OpenAI's Clip for that one. So think of this as a kind of a mini series, if you like, where we're kind of going through this step by step. All right, there we go. So agenda for today, well, a little bit of an introduction. We'll briefly say something about AI and ML with the SingleStore. We'll get into multimodal. Okay, so I'm going to talk about multi-modal as well for SingleStore. There is a demo, and Yukti will share the link to the GitHub repo. So you are welcome to run that with me if you like, or you can just watch this and do it later in your own time. That's absolutely fine. Okay, so we're going to be using the shared tier, which Yukti alluded to, and the notebook will work just fine on that. And so in terms of resource requirements, it's fairly small, quite low. So there'll be no problem with that. Okay, so before we go any further, so here, if you go to this website here, okay, or you can use the, if you scan the link that was on the previous slide, singlestore.com/cloud-trial. Literally within a couple of minutes, you can be signed up. So you can see, you can use Google or Microsoft, or do it the old-fashioned way using first name, last name, company email address. Don't worry too much about company email address. I think it will happily accept Gmail and live.com. The key point there is that there's a wizard. It will walk you through a couple of steps, and I think you will receive an email to verify that you are really human. You have really created this account, and you just verify that. And once you do that, you can sign into the portal itself, which will look something like this. Okay, so if we go to the home page, once you log in, you'll see that there's a variety of options. You may well have an option at the top which says something about the user interface. It normally appears there. I've already selected the newer user interface. So if you have that option, I would recommend you select the new one. It will look something like this. Okay. So there's a couple of things that you can see here. And as part of the kind of setup process and the sign up process for the free shared tier, you will see that under deployments here, okay, if I just show you on the left-hand side, this thing here, deployments. Okay, let me just click that. Already you have configured and running for you a workspace and a database. Okay, so those should be up and running for you straight away. There's no need for you to run these. And these will run are actually configured to run on AWS. You don't have a choice there at the moment. Now, whether we offer a choice in the future, that is for engineering. I can't comment. But essentially, this is the free shared tier, and it's already running for you. And if you find that this is not sufficient for your needs, I mean, as you can see, it mentions here, free shared tier. Okay, it tells you what the limits are, 10 tables, 1 GB of compressed storage. And then it's got a little bit of information here. Need bigger limits for your workload? Contact us. Okay. Or what you can do is if you just go to the top here, just here, okay, this section. And if I select this pull down here on the right-hand side, okay, there is the option to get a new deployment. So let me click on that and let me show you what that looks like. So here, as you can see, because you're only allowed one starter free shared tier, that's ghosted out. It's already running for me. But if you need something a bit bigger, you can see that the standard is selected here. And then you've got a couple of options. So workspace group name, for example, you can change that or take the default. Currently it says group one. You've got the three main cloud providers, so you can choose that. I normally run mine on AWS just for convenience. And the starter free shared tier also runs on AWS at the moment. Okay, so you've got a couple of options there that you can choose your region as well, and so on. Right? I mean, it's just literally this page and the next page, which is down at the bottom. Just click next here, okay? And then that will provision something a bit more substantial for you. Let me just show you there. So by default, you'll get this, which is an S00, okay? And that is 2 virtual CPUs, 16 GB of RAM, and that will burn through 0.25 credits per hour. So you can actually leave that running for quite some time. And as you can see, if you're sharp-eyed and look over on the right-hand side, you see that I started off, I can't remember how many credits, a couple of $100 worth of credits. This is a new account, and now I'm down to about 43.49 credits. So I still have a fair bit left. And you can edit this here as well. You can select something more substantial, but obviously it will burn through more credits. There you can see, and it gives you some details. So configure more virtual CPUs, more RAM, and so on. Okay, so just a quick walkthrough there. Okay, so you're not constrained by the free shared tier. Like I said, for most purposes, just getting started, just testing it out, putting your foot in the water kind of thing, it's absolutely fine. If you need a bit more, you can use the standard tier, but obviously that will burn through some credits for you. But S00 is typically okay. All right, so there we go. And so that's the main thing. And then let me just show you one more thing, okay? So hopefully Yukti has shared the link to the GitHub repo. There is a Jupyter notebook. And then if you want to know how do you actually get that Jupyter notebook into this environment, well, given that you've got these compute resources running already, Okay, this is your starter workspace and your database. And by the way, you can shut this down if you like, and then, provision it again if you prefer. You have the option of changing the database name, for example. I've just taken the defaults there, which is absolutely fine. So the thing to do here then is just go to Data Studio on the right-hand side. Okay, let me just show you. Okay, so if we click that, all right, and there you'll see there's something here called Browse at the top. Okay, now you can see I've got a notebook selected on the right-hand side, but in Browse, you see there's an option on the right-hand side here.
Akmal, I'm so sorry to interject. We
Yeah,
have a comment from someone. They say that they would like you to like go over onto signing up maybe because there was an issue with the link. So I've redirected them with the right link. So I think this issue might be faced with more folks. So can you please? I'm very sorry, but can
yeah,
you
yeah. No,
please?
no, that's okay. So let
Thank
me just
you.
finish this small thing here, just show people where they can load the notebook, and then I'll go back to the sign up, okay? If that's okay. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out, Yuki. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so on this, it just says new notebook, okay? But if you select this, you see they've got two options. Either a brand new notebook or you import from file. And import from file is what you want, okay? So from the GitHub repo, just grab the Jupyter notebook, save it locally on your hard drive, and then literally, if you select this, you can drag it to this, okay? And drag and drop, or just use the file browser on your machine and locate it. And once you've loaded it in, it will pop up and it's this notebook here. Okay, let me just okay, this is the one that now you can see I've got a whole bunch of other stuff here as well. I've been busy, so that's the all of this other stuff, all right? But you'll be fine, okay? And then you'll see it will look like this, okay? If you want to follow along, right? So the sign up page is this. There we go. Okay. So singlestore.com/cloud hyphen trial. There we go. Okay. Very straightforward. And as I said before, should literally take about less than 2 minutes of your time. Selecting any one of these options, either Google or Microsoft, or like I said, the old-fashioned way, first name, last name, email address, and then just click the continue button. It'll just ask you a couple of questions. You don't need to provide a credit card. It will not ask you for that. And literally, it will send you an email just to verify that you are human. And then once you've confirmed that and you get into the portal, okay, it's just portal.singlestore.com, which is where I am here. Okay. And you'll see this environment. And as I said before, once you log in, it'll look something like this. All right. Now, I've opted for something that matches my GitHub repo. So very fat boy. And as you can see, it's very welcome, very. It thinks that that's my first name. All right. So as I said, the two key things that you want to look for on the left-hand side are deployments and Data Studio. Okay. That's all you need. So if you click on deployments, you'll see that you should have a workspace. Oops, trying to be too clever there. A workspace and a database already up and running for you. Okay. In the old days, it used to be you had to do it yourself. Now they've even included that as part of the sign up process. So once you log in, it's already there running for you. There's nothing for you to do. You can use that immediately. And then Data Studio is essentially where you do your work. Okay, so if you select that, as you can see, I have my notebook here ready to walk through with you. So hopefully that's okay. All right, let me just keep an eye on the time. Okay, so we are quarter past the hour. So any further questions, please just post them in the chat, okay? And then I can pick them up from Yukti. But let's move on a little bit, okay? Let me go through some slides with you, not too many. So let me just go back here, and then we'll come back to that. But I wanted to do that for you so that you have the chance to sign up, as I said before, a couple of minutes of your time. So by the time we get to the demo, if you wish, you can walk along the code with me. All right, then. Very briefly, a little bit about SingleStore, the company. So has been around for quite a long time. Founded way back in 2011. Okay, used to be called MemSQL. You may have heard of us. So focus was purely on in-memory processing for OLTP. Subsequently added column support, okay, OLAP capabilities, around about 2015 there. And then rebranded to SingleStore in 2020. Again, if you're sharp-eyed, you'll see that here. Because if you think about it, I mean, once you move beyond just in-memory processing, the mem part of memSQL doesn't make sense, right? Now you're doing more. And SingleStore implying the fact that now you have a single store, all right? The one that can do both types of processing, both OLAP and OLTP. A couple of milestones worth mentioning there is first one is this vector search. Hot topic these days. Everybody's got vector search and vector support today. Keep in mind that SingleStore has had that capability since 2017. Right? Now, we haven't been sitting on our laurels. So earlier this year, added some significant improvements to vector support. So there is a dedicated vector type, which we're going to use today. I'll show you that as part of LangChain. And you can give it some information in terms of number of dimensions. By default, it's 32-bit floating point, but you can change that if you want. Okay, we'll take the default today. And other key things worth mentioning quickly here that we are a $100 million plus ARR company, that's US dollars. And this number really should be updated. It's 400 customers now globally. Okay, quickly, in terms of the architecture, then we've got this concept of universal storage. Okay, so this is the bit of magic, if you like, that handles the two sort of competing requirements, if you like, the OLTP and the OLAP. A single table type that can do that. Okay, it's fairly. Well, one time I used to say it's unique. Okay, I think one or two other vendors now do that, but keep in mind that we've been doing this for some time. So it's pretty solid stuff. It's used and deployed in anger in production systems. We integrate well with streaming data. Okay, so the likes of Kafka. You can work with Spark, and I think Yukti's actually got something in the calendar in terms of webinars that we are going to cover Spark and Kafka in the foreseeable future. Perhaps early in the new year. Okay, it just depends on timing. You can also load data from external sources, Hadoop, HDFS, S3 buckets, and we have this concept of pipelines, which is just reading in the data in parallel at scale. Very useful feature. Again, something that we'll cover again in the near future. The three main cloud providers, AWS, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure. So today I am using AWS. Okay, so that is what the free tier is provisioned on. It can run us on-prem, and there is a Docker container too. But signing up using the cloud trial is the easiest way because there's nothing for you to install. Multimodal features, okay, multimodal as opposed to multimodal. Okay, so relational, geospatial, full text, key value, JSON, time series vectors, full text, as Yukti mentioned, JLucine, we're going to do that in the very near future. That's an improvement on the full text capability we've had for some time. And then just to round it off, dashboards, ad hoc queries, machine learning, and so on. Okay, so you can see there's a wide range of capabilities and integrations. And then just in case you're wondering, well, who's using vector support with your product? Well, here is a list of companies whose names that we are allowed to share. So there's more than 45 of them, including these well-known names such as Sixsense, Adobe, Goldman Sachs, Siemens, Thorne, and so on. Okay, so these are just some of them. And if you're interested and would like to know more, I mean, just reach out to us and we can provide white papers, case studies, and there are links on the website as well. Okay, they are documented online too. So one of the key reasons, if you like, for the development of SingleStore is that if we look at the way that a lot of data and AI applications are developed, typically you might start off with something like this, have a database management system, and perhaps you need some kind of batch ingest. That's fine. And then over time you find, well, you need to deal with operational data as well, additional requirement. And then maybe you need to work with JSON, for example. Perhaps you're reading in data from external sources, maybe, or working with some partner. And then perhaps using some kind of caching technology to sit in front of that. So I know of cases, for example, I've read case studies over the years where, for example, Redis has acted as a fast cache in front of MySQL. That might be important, okay? Just speed up some operations. And then something like Elastic, for search. JLucine I've already alluded to. I mean, we support that too. Now about streaming data then, integration with Kafka, that's important. Things like IoT, clickstream data, our pipelines is an awesome feature that integrates really well with that, and I've demoed that many times in the past. And then, of course, things like analytics. Okay, so perhaps something like Snowflake for data warehouse for doing that kind of data manipulation analysis at scale. And then finally, things like machine learning, AI, ML. So you can see there's a fair bit of database sprawl there, a variety of tools and technologies that you kind of have to end up integrating. And so the thinking behind SingleStore is really to simplify that process. So that has two benefits. One, if you're a developer, makes your lives easier because now there's only one product to learn. Secondly, if you're a business leader, it makes your life easier as well because in terms of licensing and cost, total cost of ownership, return on investment, that's going to be much better for you as well in the long term. Okay, you'll reduce a lot of the expense. And so still you can do the same things, batch ingest, SingleStore can handle the operational, OLTP, OLAP, JSON support, streaming data, very easy to do using pipelines. Transaction and analytics, same product. We talked about that a few slides ago. Happily integrates with a variety of machine learning. We'll look at it. And there's a slide coming up that mentions some of those tools and technologies, and of course, all these multimodal capabilities, of which today we are mostly going to focus on vectors then. Okay, so that's the key thing. All right, so here's some of the integrations that we have and we use in terms of machine learning and AI. This is not exhaustive. Okay, I am a significant user of Spark, write about that a fair bit. Python is the language that you can use in the portal, the Jupyter notebooks. That's what we're going to use today. Out of the box, for the vector function, SingleStore supports Euclidean distance and dot product. Those are, for many applications, that's sufficient. If you need cosine similarity, it's very easy to code that up in SQL. Okay, we actually have that documented in our product documentation. And if there is something else that you need to do that might be a little bit more exotic, for example, it's not supported by the product, you can actually code it yourself using this feature called Code Engine using WebAssembly. And very recently, I think, was it maybe 4 to 5 weeks ago, something like that? I had an article published on DZone, for example, which showed how to use WebAssembly to do sentiment analysis on Stack Overflow comments. And we used this library called VADA, Valence Aware Dictionary and Sentiment Reasoner, and that's been packaged up for us. It's already in the cloud. We may just make use of it, and straight away, we've extended the capabilities of the engine, and the database engine can do far more now. And so this code runs in a separate space as well. So if there is a bug, you don't bring the entire system crashing down. Okay, so that's a very useful feature. And again, variety of languages supported there, for example, C, C++, Rust, and so on. Okay, so that's a very useful feature. And of course, things like OpenAI and various LLMs as well. I often use OpenAI. In the early days, when I first started using OpenAI with SingleStore and we did these webinars, the cost was terrible. So tens of dollars in terms of billing. I've noticed that it's tiny now compared to what I used to pay. It's like 2 cents, 3 cents. And I might be doing quite a lot in terms of using their environment. So, it's really come down significantly and made it very cost effective. All right, so let's say a little bit about multimodal then. Sorry, multimodal. Let me get that right. Okay, so we talked about multimodal earlier. So what do we mean? Well, the idea here is that historically, if you look at what ChatGPT, for example, did originally, it was just text. You know, the ability to enter text, and it has a huge corpus that it's been trained on, and it will go away, and it comes back almost like magic, giving you these wonderful sort of answers and building up these sentences, and then it's almost like talking to a real person, right? um, but think about it. The world is not just text. It consists of other things as well. So text is just one component, right? So here, for example, we have a phrase that's quite well known in the Western literature: the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. But we also have an image, okay, of a fox jumping over a sleeping dog there. And we may have an audio file. So it might be me speaking that very phrase. So we need to transcribe that, for example. Okay, so images, right? So the ability to handle a wide variety of data types. Now, the challenge there is that we want to put these into some kind of standard format then that allows us to work with this type of data. And so, vector support is dead easy. Uh, it's certainly in SingleStore. You'll see that today. And so it's this kind of black box here that, typically something like a transformer or something, or, maybe embeddings occur naturally, for example. Vector embeddings sometimes do that. And if you look at something like the Zalando dataset, for example, where it's 10 different types of articles, bits of clothing, t-shirts, coats, shoes, handbags, that kind of thing. There is a natural representation there already. It's grayscale. So you've got you know, a certain number of rows, certain number of columns, and within each of those cells, it is a value between 0 and 255. And if you flatten that structure out, you've got a vector, a natural vector that occurs. So you don't have to generate that. That is something that you can utilize straight away. And again, we've demonstrated that. But for this part here today, we're going to use clip. And so that's going to do the magic for us. And we are going to look at both text and image and how they can kind of coexist in the shared space. And it's actually very, very simple to use and extremely powerful as well, because essentially it does the hard work for us. We write a little bit of code in order to use it, but that makes the task much simpler. Okay, so we'll look at that momentarily. Now, as part of this, we will notice that in the code in the notebook itself that we are using CPUs. SingleStore is gradually rolling out GPU support as well. So if you don't see it today, hopefully within the very near future, you should have that option available to you, and you can run a GPU. So this is something that I wanted to point out here. Okay, the ability to utilize that. And additionally, SingleStore is working on a couple of other capabilities and features. So, for example, if you're a fan of Olama, the ability to run your LLMs locally. And again, I think one of the previous webinars we did just very recently demoed just that. So you do not need to use a commercial large language provider. You can, take a lot of open source technology, use something like Olama, run it locally on your laptop or within your environment, wherever that may be. And that enables you to do that processing locally without having to send things outside your environment. It's very useful. So again, that's something that SingleStore is working on. And I think the challenge there has been just getting good performance out of it. So they've been looking at things like virtual VLLM, for example, as a better alternative. And again, keep your eyes open for that. Okay, so that should be available in the near future. So today we're going to use the SQL and Python in the notebooks. And there are other sort of capabilities as well, which again, because of in the interest of time, we'll skip those for today. Okay, so let me just switch to the demo then. Okay, so hopefully you've all managed to get your notebooks loaded in. And again, you see if there's any questions relating to that, please let me know. Okay, I'm more than happy to just cover that again. We do have a little bit of time. This notebook today is not significantly long, but I can, just set aside a couple of minutes to walk through that again. But here's the notebook that Yukti shared with you. I walked through the steps to show you how to get that in. So like I said, you've already got your compute and your database running as part of the free shared tier. The only thing you need to do is just load the notebook, and you can do that here from Data Studio. Okay, and then select Browse at the top there, and you will see the option over on the right hand side. Okay, where it says New Notebook. But if you select that, you can see there's two options there. Either a brand new notebook, and then you can create that from a template, or you import from file, which is what we've done here. Okay, there we go. So let me go over here and let's walk through this. Okay, so I pre-run this a little bit earlier today just to check, and just make sure at the top here that you do have your database and your compute resource. And if you are only running the free shared tier, it should appear there automatically. So that should be fine. You need that in there. Otherwise, you can't execute the code here. So the way that I've done this, so Clip is from OpenAI. I mean, there's several ways that you could actually use this. What I've opted to do is I've done it this way here, is to install it from GitHub. Hopefully that gets the latest version. It does take a little bit of time. Okay, first time you run this. So I think this one here did take a few minutes to execute. And then we also need LangChain community here. Okay, and we need Torch here as well. Okay, so there's the three main libraries to install, and then a couple of imports here, standard stuff. So NumPy, Pandas, and so on. And because we're going to download a couple of images from my GitHub repo, okay, you're welcome to substitute the images for something else that you wish, but obviously the ones that I've put up there are available for you to test out for yourselves. We need a few things like IPython display just to be able to render those so that we can see those as well. Okay. Next thing is to just load the clip model. Okay, here. Okay, so as I said before, it will work on, I don't have GPU here, so you'll see that we've got, it's going to be this option, else CPU. So that's what's going to be running, but it's okay. It's fairly small scale today. As I said before, this is the kind of first of a series of several webinars we're going to do, and we're going to gradually build up over time. So the next thing to do then is to grab some images. And we are going to grab a couple of images from my GitHub repo. So these are SingleStore images. So if we take a look, it just renders them below. Okay, so a while back, we built a couple of really nice videos, and these are the kind of thumbnails for the three videos that we had. So this one, as you can see, a little bit of text there, what makes SingleStoreDB unique. And then you can see there's a disk drive on the right-hand side there, as well as a picture of a unicorn, a kind of shadow, if you like. And then the second image here, streaming data ingestion. And again, you can see there's a little bit of text there, plus a disk drive on the right-hand side. And then finally, this one, what makes SingleStoreDB fast? You can see there's what is I think there's an SR-71 Lockheed very fast spy plane from years ago. I remember seeing this at Farnborough Air Show many, many years ago when I was young. It was the first time I think it was allowed out of the United States. Anyway, so those are the three images that we're going to grab. That's going to form part of what we are going to store. And then, of course, we want some text as well. And so here you can see that we've got a couple of phrases there. So three of those, the first three are identical to the text that we actually saw in the images. And then I've added a couple of others, ultra-fast ingestion and pipelines. So you can see that we've got three images plus five kind of bits of text that we're going to work with. And our next challenge then is just to simply encode them. And that is very, very easy to do, very straightforward. We can do that for both the image and the text just using this code here. Okay, you can see the two parts there. It's almost identical, slight differences there, but that will handle it for us. We'll normalize the features just to make it easier to work with as well. I think that's a fairly good practice to do anyway. And then we combine the embeddings, okay, here for both the image and the text. Okay. Now, one of the things that Clip allows you to do is it has this kind of shared space for both image and text. And so as part of this process that we're going through, it will generate the vectors for us, and the vectors will be of the same length, regardless of whether it's an image or whether it's text. So it's actually 512 dimensions, I think. We'll verify that in just a moment. Um, and so this shared space allows us to store both of these two sort of
Akmal, there is
different
a question.
representations. Sorry, Yuki?
So sorry to interject. Yeah,
Yep.
so there is a question again that someone is not able to find the LangChain notebook. They claim to have looked through recent persona shared gallery, firewall, and they do not see LangChain. So if you can please go over that again, that would be great.
Yeah, it should be here. Okay, so github.com. Let's have a look. There we go. That is the repo. And the very first link there is this one, LangChain clip multimodal. Okay, so it's just github.com/very fat boy. Simple. Okay, no spaces, uppercase, lowercase, doesn't matter. Okay, there we go. Let me just highlight that for you. Okay, github.com/very fat boy. And if you just look at my repos, just select repositories, the very first one at the top will be something called LangChain multimodal, clip multimodal. All right, there we go. Okay, and if you click on that, you will see that there is a notebook here, this one, and that's it. And so you need to download. So if I click on this, there we are. There's the notebook, and you have a couple of options. So you can download the raw notebook, or just you can fork it, whatever is convenient. Okay, that's the way that you can grab that. All right. Hopefully that will get you what you need. All right. We can come back to that in just a moment. All right. And then finally, what we need to do here then is we'll take the labels, okay, and the features and the names of the files in the case of the file names, okay, and we just kind of combine them. We'll just create a data frame. And then we can have a look at what the structure of that data frame is. So you can see here that we've got our embeddings under vector. The label simply tells us whether it's an image or whether it's text. Okay, that's just for identification. It's useful to know. And then the value is simply if it's an image, it's the name of the file, the PNG file in this case. Or if it was the text string that we used, it's just the text string there. Okay, there you can see. So remember, there's 3 images and 5 pieces of text. So at this stage now, what we have is we've got a vector representation, and that is 512 dimensions, okay, regardless of whether it's an image or it's text that's been generated for us. And then we've decided that, okay, we want a bit more information. So we're going to store the image and text label just for identification, and then the value as well. Okay, here, that's very useful. So we've got all the stuff that we need now. And then here, all I've simply done in this line of code here is just find out how many dimensions we have. Okay, it's because I'm going to use this value a little bit further down. I'm going to pass this to LangChain so that it creates the correct number of dimensions for SingleStore. Okay, that's all it does. All right. And because we know that Clip uses this shared space for both types, it's going to be the same number of dimensions. And that's it. So the next step is to simply say, well, okay, let's take this data frame and we'd like to store it in SingleStore. Okay, so we standard SQL Alchemy here, okay, and then just create a connection, create engine, connection URL, okay, and this is a little bit of magic here, okay, so you don't need to know this, but this is picked up from this up above. Okay, that's why you need to have this selected at the top, so this connection URL can be filled in for you automatically. Again, you don't have to fill in the details yourself. If this table that we're going to work with already exists, drop it. Okay, just gives us a kind of clean slate to begin with. And then here, if we just skip this little bit of code here in this cell for a moment, I'll come back to this in just a sec. But here we've got LangChain, and this is doing the magic for us, the bit of plumbing and the hard work. Now, generally speaking, when you're working with LangChain, typically you're going to use a large language model, or you're going to use something that generates embeddings for whatever it is you want to store. Sometimes for some of the products that LangChain can work with, I believe there is an option that you can select that says, okay, I am going to generate the embeddings myself. In the case of SingleStore, we don't have that option currently. That would be useful to have. So all I've done is I've kind of written my own bit of code here. Basically, what LangChain then tries to do is it tries to call an LLM, but it doesn't need to. It will simply go here. And because we have the embeddings already generated, remember we've got this up here. We don't need to generate these vectors. There's no need to call any other piece of software to do this for us now because we already have these values. We simply insert them here and essentially give LangChain everything that it needs in order to do its job here. Okay, so what's happening then? So we're using this kind of standard call. So it's taking the information. Okay, docs is just above there, right? We have the embeddings. We give it the table name that we wanted to create. The distance strategy that it needs to use. By default, it's dot product, but I've just emphasized that there. I could change that to Euclidean distance as well. But I've decided just to add that for my visibility as well. We want it to create a vector index as well. And here's that dimensions that we calculated a little bit earlier on. So given all this, LangChain goes away and does all of this for us. If we didn't use it, we'd have to go through that process ourselves. So we'd have to store the data ourselves in a table that we've created, for example. We'd have to create the index ourselves as well. Okay. And then in terms of storing the data as well. So you can see this has saved us quite a bit of time and effort. And that, yes, I had to write a little bit of extra code here in order to handle the situation that I do have these vector embeddings already. I don't need to call anything else. This is what this is simply doing, all right? So that's the little bit of code that's been added. Other than that, once that's done, here's the table that LangChain will create for us. So you can see automatically it gives us an ID, right? That's auto-generated for us. We didn't specify that. It's done for us. We have some content being stored, and we'll look at that in a moment. Here's the vector field, okay, for the embeddings, and then some metadata as well being added, which is in JSON format. And you can see here that it's given us 512, okay, for the vector type, and it's 32-bit floating point, which is the default. So it's done that for us. The table has been created, and then if we just do a bit more interrogation here to say, okay, show me what indexes you've created, on that particular table as well. Here, it shows us that it's created this, on this table, it's created a vector index. Okay, and if we take a scroll to the extreme right-hand side, you can see that the index is of type vector and its metric type is dot product, okay, which is what we specified very specifically as part of that, although we didn't need to. Okay, the default would be dot product anyway, right? Now, there are other parameters that we could pass in. Okay, again, in the interest of time and to keep things relatively simple, I've given it not exactly the minimum. I mean, the minimum would be even less than this, but I've given a bit more than that. But there's more options available. These are documented in the LangChain docs as part of the SingleStore implementation. Okay, so I'd encourage you to have a look at that. For example, if you wanted to add full text capability, you could do that too, right? That's something optional. All right, so once all that's done, all we need to do then is let's do some queries. Let's ask some queries of both the text and the image, and then combine the two as well to see what sort of results we get. So a little bit of code here, a simple function to get the text query vector. So we want to enter something in and we want to generate that vector so that we can compare it against the database. So this one is handling the text. And again, you can see that this code you saw a little bit earlier. Okay, we've normalized. And because we're working with 32-bit floating point in SingleStore, we ensure that this vector matches that exactly. And this is what it's returning. And then our next task is then simply to say, all right, here's the query that we're going to ask. All right. So what makes SingleStore DB unique? And we just generate this. Okay. Get back the vector as 32-bit floating point, and then straight away within the SQL code here, you can see we can use it. This is shorthand for dot product. There is our variable that's being passed in. And then if we take a look, here is the similarity values that are being returned. And lo and behold, the very best match is an exact 1.0. And it happens to be the exact match for the string that we have, one of the text values that we stored. So notice here that, okay, we are querying in our system, we've got both text and images stored. Currently, we are just querying on text. It seems to have given considerably more weight to the text results there, which seem to have higher values there if you look at those, than the image values here, which do appear, but they're further down. All right. Okay. So how about if we wanted to do the reverse? Let's say we, instead of text, let's say we take an image. So we do the same thing here. Okay. Just write a function, same sort of thing. Again, pre-process that image. Okay, do the encoding here, normalize, convert that vector to 32-bit floating point, and then here, okay, here's the image that I've downloaded. Notice that this is exactly the image that, one of the three that we loaded a little bit earlier. So I should find that there is something that matches this exactly. And if I do the query here, again, you can see that lo and behold, very first and the best match, giving a similarity of 1.0, happens to be exactly the image that we have stored. Here is the metadata that we stored for that. So that's great. So we know this seems to be working well. What about if we wanted to kind of ask a mixed query then, combined query? So in this case, our string is something that appears in the image. Okay, so what makes SingleStore DB unique, for example? So we know that that value already occurs within the image itself. And suppose then we take the text and the image. We are weighting it exactly. So, take these two, and because there's two of them, we divide by two. Then, okay, after adding them to give us the combined query, you could change this. So, for example, you could give more weighting to the text, or you could give more weighting to the image. It depends what you want to do. Here, it's equal weighting. I have no preference for this. And then in this case, when we ask the question then, and then again, query the database, notice here that the top two answers match exactly, okay? Both for the image and the text in terms of the similarity I get. So here, again, using that shared space it has, the fact that we've got something more balanced now in terms of the combined query, it's giving us the results of both the image and the text as the top two answers that are available. And I've rounded these values off to 5 decimal places, but you can see these numbers are identical. Okay, 0.63294, 0.63294, right? And then finally, you might say, well, okay, you've cheated a little bit there, because what you've done is you've stored stuff in there. You've taken an image that you've already stored in there and you've matched it, and it's come out with a perfect match, which is fine. We knew that was in there anyway. And then again, you've taken a string that was something that we've stored in there as well, and it's a perfect match. That's fine too. How about if we want to search for something else, right? And here's an example of doing something that. And here I'm just taking the sort of the text value. I leave it to you to implement something for the image. So maybe, grab another image from the internet somewhere and then try and do a match against what we've stored in the database as far as text is concerned or image is concerned, whatever way you want to work with it. So my text here is simply asking a fast military jet. Now you can guess where my thinking is on this one. We saw this in the third image there, the SR71. Okay, so now I've got something that it doesn't know about. Okay, in terms of storing it uniquely. So again, taking this, and then what I'm interested in is the image. Okay, so I've specifically limited it to the content, whether it's the image type, hence that kind of extra column that we created a little bit earlier. And you see that, okay, the similarity scores are not great, but it did get the answer correct. Okay, you can see here that it's picked the third image as the best matching of those. All right. So very, very straightforward. As you can see, no need to use any external tools to generate these vector embeddings. Clip allows us to take both text and images, store them in this kind of shared space, and then depending on how we want to configure this and how we want to query it, we can easily build a nice front end, maybe using Vercel or Streamlit or something, for example, where it gives us the option to enter in a text query and or upload an image, for example, and then we could use one or both, one or the other or both, and that would be fine. Okay, I mean, that gives us the ability to query that data then based upon the vectors that it can generate from those, and it can do so using Clip. This is fairly small scale, as you can see. How scalable this approach is, I think, is hard to say. I haven't really tested it beyond sort of small sizes that we've seen today. All I can say is that in terms of the encoding process, it seems to be very fast, even for images. So that's great. Storing it in SingleStore is a breeze. Literally, it's milliseconds. And then the queries are very, very fast anyway. Remember, we've got a vector index that's already created for us as well. Now, at this scale, that index is not going to work very efficiently or very well, simply because we've only got less than 10 values stored in there. But once we scale up, say hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of values that would be stored in there, that index will really come into its own in terms of speeding up that access and being able to give us the results much, much faster. Okay, let's keep an eye on the time. I realize we are almost out of time. So let me just go back here a moment then. Okay, just to summarize then. So key things, SingleStore vector support, it's been in the product since 2017. You saw that the dedicated vector type that we use today, okay, so we created 512 dimensions by default. It's 32-bit floating point. Okay, again, you've got options that you can change. This is mature, tried and tested, used in production environments. SingleStore integrates with LangChain very, very easily. Clip, today, we took the opportunity to write some code ourselves. There is an experimental implementation of this for SingleStore, which is documented on the LangChain website, but I didn't want to use that. I wanted to actually go through the process of writing this myself, simply to see how easy it was. And I was surprised, at what the steps were required. I mean, it's very, very straightforward. And once you've got that in place, you can extend this to really, large number of images, just loop over them and create those, use the encoder to create the embeddings, store them, and then do that for both text and images. Very straightforward and easy to use. And it's, doing this multimodal support, at least for these two different types, which is images and text, certainly as far as Clip is concerned, the GitHub version, dead easy. Great option for image and text, super easy to use, seems to work really well. And again, we'll take the opportunity in the next couple of webinars to explore it a bit further and take it a bit further, stress it a bit further and see how useful it is beyond just the simple example we've done today. Okay, in case you're interested and you need help and you think that SingleStore might be a good product for you to use in some kind of production environment, we do have this Go Live acceleration program where we can work with you. We have the lots of very technically minded, very smart guys in the solutions engineering team, for example, who can work with you and assist you in terms of doing POCs and migrating your code across and your data across to SingleStore. So that's possible. The customary, we're hiring. Okay, so if you're interested, singlestore.com/careers/jobs. Have a look at that. Okay, and there we go. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So that's pretty cool, I would say. Clip does an awesome job, I would say. And it's been around, and OpenAI very graciously released it as, free and available on GitHub to use. And yes, the other providers are providing some similar capabilities and going beyond that. That's fine. But if you want to start off fairly simple with zero cost, this is a great way to do it, and just experiment with this and try it out. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at how easy it is to use and the benefits that you may be able to get from this. Okay, so more about that in the future. Okay, Yukti, I will stop there. And I think there's time for a couple of questions. If you spotted anything super interesting, or if there's any other problems people are having. So hopefully everyone's managed to get let's have a look. Where is it? This is the GitHub repo. Okay, so remember, it's very straightforward. Just github.com/, very fat boy. I think that won't fit. It's too long, and my magnifier is not very good. It's a very long text, but that's the way to do it. Okay. All right. There we go. So by all means, please extend this. Try it out with some additional images. Okay. So I limited it to a few. You're very welcome to substitute those for others, and then just create a loop. You can load in more if you wish, and then again test it out in terms of comparing what's actually stored using the dot product that's built into SingleStore.
Akmal, so okay, we are now officially open for the Q&A session. Akmal, can you like go through the Q&A session yourself, and like because we have a lot of
Oh,
questions
blimey.
and very less time. So if you
Okay.
want to pick out some question that can be like answered very fast.
All right.
So
Well, let me have
yeah,
a look.
try to pick out as many as you
Oh
can.
dear. Let's have a look. See if
So
uh,
meanwhile, when Akmal is picking out the questions, just an FYI that if you missed any part regarding the session, like anything that is not clear, you can
I
always
will.
email us. Maybe you can always message me on LinkedIn, or you can message Akmal as well. You can email us at team@singlestore.com, and we'll get to your query. And yeah, we are just keep your questions coming in, and
Yeah,
we'll
yeah,
follow.
that's fine. Okay, Yukti, I'll try and whiz through a couple of questions. I realize, pardon me, we are at the top of the hour. That's okay. So Ashish says, I can see that DB is provisioned automatically. That's correct. Okay. So for the free tier, standard tier, sorry, pardon me. Let me just step back a moment. For the free shared tier, yes, it will be automatically provisioned for you now. There's no need for you to do that. If you want to use the standard tier, you will have to do that yourself. Okay. And with that, you will burn through credits. So you will, as part of the sign up process, you get some free credits. That's good for quite some time. As I said before, if you choose the smallest configuration, which is an S00, it's two virtual CPUs, as I said before, for memory, 16 gigabytes of RAM. That will burn through 0.25 credits per hour. Okay. So you get like $600 worth of credits, which can see you for many months if you use it wisely. Sandeep says, a very basic question. Am I correctly guessing the shared online tier will not be too much bandwidth cost at the user end? I don't display images video. Yeah, remember, you're not paying anything for the free shared tier. It's free. Okay, free for life. So your cost is only going to occur in terms of your, internet connection. And remember, all of the compute and the data is in the back end. That's done on the SingleStore platform. None of that's being downloaded to your web browser down to your environment. If you want to upload files, you can do that. Okay, it's not something we cover today, but I think you can load up to 5 gigabytes. That was, I think, the limit a while back. I need to double check that, but you can upload files, CSV, other types of files, for example, into the stage, for example, and then you can use that within your Python notebook as well. So Lewis says, we have AWS on-premise, meaning we cannot install public AMIs, but we can provision our own EC2 RHL8 instances. Can we install SingleStore? And he said, yes, Lewis, the SingleStore is available in the AWS Marketplace. So if you have a look there, you'll see that it's an option that's available. And we have a very good relationship with AWS as well. So if that's something that you're interested in, just reach out to us at team@singlestore.com. We'll be happy to discuss that with you and show you the options. And because we work closely with AWS, we can take that further with you offline. Now, follow-up question. Do you support AWS RDS for our data? Great question. There should be some mechanism to be able to access RDS. Off the top of my head, I can't remember. We've got a variety of ways that we can access external data. So, for example, Pipelines works for things like Clickstream, IoT. We can load data from S3 buckets as well using Pipelines. There's CDC options as well, which are available for a couple of products. And then the recent acquisition that SingleStore announced for a whole bunch of connectors, I think that's going to be very useful going forward because that connects directly with a whole bunch of other technologies. But remember, standard connectors, JDBC, ODBC will work as well. That's very useful. But if you're thinking about sort of bulk connectivity, let me look into that for you. Okay. Again, off the top of my head, I don't remember, but we can check that out for you. Does SingleStore support graph databases like AWS Neptune? Not at the moment. So we do all the other multi-modal, as you saw, geospatial, time series, JSON, uh, full text. Graph is something not currently supported, but you can do graph-like operations using recursive CTEs, which is something that SingleStore introduced a while back, which allows you to effectively traverse, it's a bit like having a bill of materials kind of a scenario, for example, and then you can start at the top and then traverse this hierarchy and then collecting data along the way. And then as part of the query, it will work. That's why it's recursive CTE. So that's something that SingleStore didn't have, but I think it was introduced. Was it last year, if memory serves me correctly? And again, I've done an example of that using the London Underground of all things. So being able to analyze different routes, for example, across a network like this, which are like nodes and lines, and there is a time that have in terms of travel between one station and another. And again, you start at a particular point and you traverse this network, and then you arrive at the other end, which may take several paths, for example, but you can do that using this recursive CTE. Can be considered as a replacement to all enterprise DBs for AI ML specific use cases. That's a question from Ashish. Well, it could be used for a very wide variety of use cases. Yes, I agree there. So I've used a whole range of different libraries. I've got SingleStore working with Spark. So for example, mlib, I've used it with that. Works really well. There's great integration. And so if you have a particular requirement or need, for example, some specific technology that you want to utilize it with, SingleStore could be ideal. The integration may already exist. Pipelines might be a great and effective way to ingest the data. But using something like Spark, for example, yes, I mean, the two technologies are kind of complementary. And for big data processing, for example, doing analysis at scale, that could be perfect. Let's have a look. So Deborah asks, does it support multi-vector search? That's a great question. Not quite sure what you mean there. I mean, certainly across vectors, we have the ability to search regardless of the storage. I mean, we are actually, let me think. So if your question is, do we support multiple vectors stored in a single column at the moment? No. So it is restricted to, for example, you saw in the notebook, it was 512 dimensions, but that is one vector of that length. Could we store, let's say two vectors, each of 512 dimensions in that same column? At the moment, no, that's not possible. Okay, if that's what the question you're asking, which I think it is. Looks like the dog and the fox are the same breed. Thank you, Wolfgang. It could be. I used to have a different graphic, but someone substituted that. So I'll have a look at that more closely. Richard, don't see how to get to LangChain notebook. My apologies, Richard. Hopefully because the question was asked a little bit earlier, hopefully you found that. Okay, so remember, it's just github.com/veryfatboy, just one word, no spaces. And then the very first repo that you see when you look at repositories will be the one that we use today. Just drill down into that and you'll find the notebook should be there. Okay. Okay. Yuxi, I think just a couple more questions. I know it's late for you, but Abhijit has a question. In the beginning somewhere, you mentioned about the problem of working with too many databases. Did you embark upon how SingleStore solves that problem? Yes. So the question is that, hence the name SingleStore. So remember, it does OLTP, OLAP, does all those multi-modal capabilities. And if you would like examples where we've had customers that have actually replaced several different products with SingleStore, we can provide those examples to you. Some of those are actually documented on our website. We have white papers as well. And again, if there's something specific, maybe you're from a particular vertical that you're working in, and you would like to see some examples from that particular industry of some customer that has done that, we'll be happy to do that, and we can talk to us, and we'll be happy to discuss that with you further. One last question then, Akin. So Shaji has a question. Also, if you are behind a firewall, be sure to add the FQD in, otherwise you may run into permission denied issue. Yes, great point, Shaji. Thank you very much for that. So in the portal, in the environment that we were running this notebook, there is a firewall. Okay, actually, there are two firewalls that exist in the online portal. So one is specifically designed for the cluster, if you like, or the compute resources, so that you can access it from external. Let's say you got a JDBC connection, or you want to access that from some external site. And for the notebook environment, there is a separate firewall as well. So that keeps the bad guys out. And if the Jupyter notebook is trying to access something externally, you'll typically see a little pop-up that will come up at the top, normally somewhere around here, for example, in this sort of region. It will be I think, sort of light yellow in color, and it will warn you that it's trying to access some site. Please add this to the FQDN, I can say that right. And you can do that. Okay, so you just say yes, and then you get a list, and you have the option to save that, and it will save that into the list of permitted sites. So basically, that gives you some protection. And then subsequently, if you decide that you don't want to access that site anymore, or you want to prevent the notebook from accessing that site, you can just remove it, and that the file will just the behavior will observe that. Okay, it will observe your the restrictions and the limitations and what's allowed and what's not allowed, etc. Okay, so there we go. Okay, Yukti, I think we're 10 minutes over, so I better stop there. So again, thank you all very much for your questions. Hopefully this has been useful for you. Like I said, I mean, this is kind of a series of several that we're going to do. So I wanted to start off fairly small, just to get you in the mood, if you like, just to show you what's possible. Hopefully you've seen that it's very, very easy to get started with Clip. Great way to work with both images and text. The example I've shown you, you can build upon that, use your own images, use your own text, extend it, store more data, and then just experiment with that and try various queries, and then see how it comes out. What's the level of accuracy? How is the similarity value, and so on. Okay, I think you may be pleasantly surprised in terms of how much data you can get into SingleStore. Certainly, as far as the SQL is concerned, SingleStore has no problem, and it will scale and it will give you fast access. I think the only challenge is if you've got lots of data, it's doing this kind of encoding and embedding and generating these vectors, which I'm not sure if Clip was really designed for a huge amount of data at scale, but certainly it seems to work reasonably well at small scale. And with that, I will stop, and let me stop the share there. Okay, there we go. And back to you, Yukti.
All right. Thanks so much, Akmal, for taking care of all the questions, and we really appreciate it. So, just for just an FYI, we are having amazing webinars that are going to come up by in the coming few weeks. And if you like today's session, feel free to tune in for those sessions. And the good news is that the majority of the webinars will be hosted by Akmal. So, if you liked him as a speaker, so feel free to tune in for those as well. And I hope to see you all there. Thanks everyone for joining today's session. And I hope you have a great rest of the day and have a good night if you are in the APAC region. All right.
Yeah.
Take care, everyone. Bye bye.